Today we're going to be talking about one of the most underappreciated and possibly underused tools in the Canva dashboard, especially when it comes to image editing. This tool not only helps you to create a sense of depth with your images, but it can be really useful in helping you design really creative layouts in Canva. So let's get blurry. Today we're going to create a vertical video promo for a skincare brand, and we're going to start with this beautiful photograph that I found in Unsplash, which is one of my favorite image libraries for royalty-free images. And what we're going to do with this image is to ultimately create this wonderful frosted glass effect with a blurred background so that it looks like it's behind a pane of frosted glass, but with the image slightly cut out. And then we're going to add some elements to that. So what I'm going to do first is just to resize this image so it fits the full page, and I'm just going to click and drag it so that it snaps to those guides in the middle. Now there's a reason that I do that, and it's because we're going to create multiple layers of this image, and if I know that it's aligned full height to the page and centered, it's easy for me to make sure the others are also aligned so that they all kind of overlap correctly, and you'll see why that's important in a second. So the next thing I'm going to do is just copy this by hitting Control-C, and then I'm going to paste it by hitting Control or Command V. Now I'm going to go to the left-hand side to my Elements tab, and I'm going to select a circular frame, and I'm going to just resize it so that it fits well and has a little bit of her hair and hand overlapping at the top there. Next, I'm just going to click on this image underneath it, the one that we just copied and pasted, and I'm just going to drag it till it pops into the circle. Now you'll see it resized so it doesn't match the one underneath, but if I just double click it, I can then grab these handles and move it to full size of the page underneath, which is what we did with the other one, and then just click and drag till it matches up with the image below. And that gives us a pretty perfect overlay. Now, at the moment it looks like there's only one image because both of them match well and they're both in sharp focus. But if we go to the Position tab on the left, you can see there is a circular one on the top and the full screen one on the bottom. I'm going to select the full screen one on the bottom again. I'm going to copy it again by hitting Control or Command C and paste it again by hitting Control or Command V. And you'll see it's put another layer with that same image at the top. And for this layer, I'm going to go to Edit Photo, click Background Remover, and let it remove the background. And when I click and move it, you can see that it's got the foreground and the woman, and they've been isolated from the background. Now that we've got that done, we're going to go to the Position tab again, and we're going to select the image that's in the background, so the lowest layer, and we're going to go to Edit Photo, select the Blur tool along these bottom effects here, and then we're going to go to the Whole Image tab here and adjust the intensity until we have a really soft, blurry background of that image. Once we're happy with that, we just click this arrow to go back, and you'll see that the background is now blurred. The image that's in the circle is still clear, and this top element, which is just the image with the background removed, is also clear and in sharp focus. And the next thing we're going to do is just crop this image that's in sharp focus with the background removed so that when we overlap it with the circle, it appears as if the head is actually peeking out. And once we've cropped it a little, we can just click and drag it and position it. Now, if you find it's trying to pop into that circular frame, just hold the Command key while you move it, and it then won't try and pop into the frame underneath. So there you go. I have now selected it and moved it over, and it looks like she's actually extended out of this frosted glass frame. You can of course go to the background layer, the frosted layer or blurred layer, and you can go to Edit Photo, Adjust, and just play around with the brightness and the contrast until you get something that looks like you want it to look as a frosted glass background. Now before we look at how the final version of this comes together with some elements and a few sound effects and music, I am very excited to announce that my Canva OS course is now open for enrollment. Enrollment opened on Monday, and if you are interested in joining the course, there is currently an early bird offer which expires on the 11th of March. If you enjoyed this tutorial or the other ones that I've done on this channel, then this is definitely the course for you. We talk about how to use Canva so that you can get to a point where you feel more confident, more creative, and more in control of that whole creative process. And for 2024, I have added a load more content specifically focused on video and animation because that's what you asked for. So if you go to the link that's on the screen right now or in the description below the video, you can sign up to my Canva OS course. In 2 weeks' time, you will have access to all of the content. And if you have any questions whatsoever about whether it's right for you, please just drop me an email. But if you are interested, now's the time to get in while the early bird special is on. I am super excited about this course and the feedback has been phenomenal. So I would love to see you inside. As I say, if you have any questions, let me know. So the final things that we wanted to add to this animation or to this promo is just to look for a few elements. And what I did was I actually looked for futuristic elements and I filtered by animated. And I just added some of them in here. So all of these are individual elements. I added a tiny bit of branding, as I am known to do, but the rest are just animated elements within Canva, and I just clicked and dragged them in and positioned them in here. Now obviously because they are animated, they have their own sense of movement, which is great. And then I used a couple of static frames like this to just call them out and make sure that there's a bit of movement on the video and some of the text is animated with a simple typewriter effect. As I've shown you in my other videos, I then went through and adjusted the timing on each of the individual elements that I wanted to come in at different times just to add some movement and interest. And then I just added a couple of sound effects. All I did was go into the Canva audio library on the left-hand side here. And again, I searched for futuristic and I found this really cool glitch effect. And then I did the same thing looking for some music and I found a lovely piece of music that kind of builds behind it, which will give us a lovely flow to this final video. And this is how it looks. Of course, with a promo video, we add a call to action and make sure we know what the purpose is of the video. And that's something that we go through inside my Canva OS course, actually. We have a pre-designed checklist for all social content so that you know that you're doing it in the right way and make sure that you don't miss anything. But for us, that's now ready for us to use just as a promo for any kind of beauty brand. And of course, you could change all those elements to suit your brand. But there are a couple of other ways that you can create that same blurred effect with a little more flexibility actually in Canva. So if we wanted to blur elements of this image with a little bit more of a selective brush, what we can do is go to Edit Photo, go to that blur option, and instead go to Brush on the top of these two tabs. This allows you to then change the brush size, and as you click and drag the slider, you'll see the circle on the image shows you how big the brush is. And you can change the intensity, which is how much of a blur there is. Now to add a blur to the image, once you've selected your brush size, etc., you literally are just going to draw or paint over the parts of the image that you want to blur. Now, this can be a little fussy depending on the size of your brush and exactly how specific you want to get with the blurring, but to get that similar effect to what we just did, I am going to just brush over the background at the top of this image and leave the bottom clear or sharp in focus and try and get as close as I can to her without it going too far over. And then when I unclick or I release it, you'll see that the parts I painted over, the parts that were purple, are now blurred. And it gives us a lot more control over the part that we want to blur. And of course, we can then undo that by clicking on the left-hand side to remove and using that same brush to just remove parts of it. So if I brush on the bottom here, I don't want the table to be blurred. I'm going to brush over that and you'll see it will be removed and that is now in sharp focus. Now that's a really super cool way of adding highlights to certain parts of the image or even having a fun effect where you've almost blurred out some information to add some intrigue. There are so many ways that you can use this to really have fun and experiment with adding blurring or a frosted glass effect so that you can get some depth in your images. Now the blur tool actually has a lot of other functions and you can use it to create some really beautiful layouts in Canva. The one thing that is missing though is that you can't add a blur effect to video, so you can't get this frosted glass effect over video currently, only over static images. But there are ways to do that. You can't do it in Canva, but there are other free tools that you can use and combine with your workflow in Canva to get some really cool video effects. If that's something you'd be interested in and you'd like me to create a tutorial on that, please just leave a comment and let me know that you would like me to do that, and I will see if I can create that for the next couple of weeks' time. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this was useful, and if you would like more of these kind of tutorials or to learn more about Canva and how to work in Canva with me, then my Canva OS course is open for enrollment. Please just hit the link that's in the description below the video. Get in while the early bird discount is in place. Thanks again, have a fabulous week, and I will see you next week.